The Toronto Maple Leafs have signed Dell, and apparently they also really want Joe Thornton. We'll discuss the latest Leafs news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now we have some updated breaking news here from the NHL regarding the Maple Leafs and a goaltender signing, and we also have some rumors on a player they really want to add to their lineup ahead of the next NHL season. So the first up the news we have that they've signed former Sharks goaltender Dell to a one-year contract valued at $800,000. Now of course you have to wonder, could this be something more to it, or is this adding extra goaltending depth to the organization? Clearly right now, Frederik Andersen's their number one goaltender. He has 1 year left on his contract. There's been a lot of rumors about his future with the club. Clearly, if they do decide to keep him and play up that contract, they will have a very difficult time re-signing him. So it very well could be his last season in Toronto. They may have to go in a different route here, obviously, due to cap constraints and whether or not they want to sign Andersen to a longer-term deal given where he's at with his career. So hard to say what the future holds there, but right now he's the number one. Jack Campbell, who they acquired from the Los Angeles Kings, is the current number two or backup goaltender in the organization, making a decent backup salary. And now they add Dell, who kind of becomes that number three goalie at $800,000. And then of course they have prospects like Joseph Wall and Ian Scott, who likely could be in their minor league system with the American Hockey League, who are, pretty promising looking prospects. Of course, you never know how things are going to happen and develop. Now, Scott last year did not really play. He ended up having some hip issues due to an impingement deal that he was working on. Ended up having a surgery and basically missed the entire season. So a year was lost on Ian Scott's development, which is really unfortunate. He had an incredible junior career, top junior goalie in Canada, leading to the end of his junior time there. So that's really unfortunate, but he should be okay. I haven't seen an update on him in a little while. I know back in December when he had the surgery, it was expected to be around a 6-month recovery. It's been well past that, and we're still looking at another probably a few months at least before we have NHL hockey again. So, realistically, they should both be good to go for the next year. It'd be nice to see both of them get American Hockey League time. Joseph Wall spent last year in the AHL, had some decent amount of games, didn't have the greatest stats, but obviously, it's a big jump for him to go to pro hockey. And a lot of these goaltenders do take a lot longer to develop, and they quite often, on average, are 23, 24 years old before they really get their first crack at the NHL. So, really nothing to be overly concerned about. So they certainly have added some much needed, organizational depth of this position. But it certainly just makes me wonder if another move could be coming about here. I guess we will wait and see. Now, all three of their goaltenders that they have under contract, including Andersen and Campbell, all have a California connection. Of course, they acquired Andersen from the Anaheim Ducks. You got Jack Campbell come over from the Los Angeles Kings, and now they get Dell from the San Jose Sharks. So obviously, we'll call them the California trio there. The other thing with Dell as well, in case you're not aware, one of the assistant coaches to the Maple Leafs, Dave Haxtell, former coach at the University of North Dakota in the NCAA before he made the jump to the NHL, coached Dell for a couple of years. That's where he played in his NCAA hockey before making the jump. Of course, he never got drafted either, so he certainly battled his way through, signed as an unrestricted free agent with the San Jose Sharks. Had some pretty decent years. The last couple of years were a little rougher on him. His numbers were certainly down. About 3 years back, though, he had a save percentage, I think it was like .930 and a 2.0 goals against average. It was only 20 games that he played, but it was a really solid 20 games, and then the year after was a little bit of a step down, and then last year wasn't great either. But the team in front of him wasn't overly great, and obviously their defense wasn't good. But at the same time, I think the Leafs obviously should have better defense this year. But in the past, have been more of an offensive team, giving up more chances. But the moves they've made on the blue line, especially, I would think that their blue line should be able to cut down those grade A chances, and they should be a better defensive team. So whether it be Jack Campbell, Freddie Andersen, or Dell, should all theoretically be in a situation to thrive and have a better season than they had in the past, with the team in front of them playing stronger. So I guess we'll see what this Dell signing does, if anything, to create other moves. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are down in the comments. Is just a move to add more depth, or could something else be brewing here with the Leafs? Now, as I mentioned as well, there's reports that have been surfacing kind of off and on over the last number of weeks, but it's really come to talk here in the last day about the Maple Leafs really wanting to add veteran center iceman Joe Thornton, who's played the majority of his career at the San Jose Sharks. Of course, the former first overall pick way back in 1997, started with the Boston Bruins, has had one heck of an NHL career. Certainly still battling to find the Stanley Cup that he's been chasing this whole time. He's certainly one of the, if not the greatest NHL player, along with a guy probably like Henrik Lundqvist, the top veterans that have had amazing careers and just have not been able to get to that point where they've got a Stanley Cup. So obviously, Thornton's got some big decisions to make. There's certainly, a lot of people think that the Sharks would welcome him back if he goes back to San Jose. We saw today they just brought back Patrick Marleau. But you know what? Thornton, I think, might not be going to San Jose. I mean, the Leafs are pushing hard, and there's also been some rumblings about Vegas. And the connection to former coach Peter DeBoer, who he was very close with and certainly had a great working relationship with. Now, Vegas and Toronto both have their cap problems. And right now, I think Vegas' cap problems is probably even a little bit worse than Toronto. For either team to make the addition, it's going to require something else to go out off the roster. And I do think the Leafs likely would have a better chance, but you can't count out Vegas. I mean, they just signed Alex Pietrangelo, traded out Nate Schmidt. They will be aggressive if they decide they really want to add him. But right now the talk is that the Leafs are even having some of their top veteran players reach out to Thornton to kind of try and persuade him, see what his interest is, to kind of talk about what it's like to be a Maple Leaf and give some first-hand experiences. Kind of we saw the same sort of thing when John Tavares was a UFA, when they were courting him. Obviously, they put together a whole package, including a video, which apparently Mitch Marner was a part of, and he did have conversations with other Maple Leafs as well. I'm sure that with the addition of recent veterans like Wayne Simmons, they brought back Jason Spezza, signing guys like Brody and Bogosian on the back end. Obviously, this team has made a lot of adjustments. There could be a lot of veteran, leadership in that bottom six if he does indeed sign with the Leafs. But obviously, he'd have to sign for pretty cheap, like we saw Simmons and Spezza do. It'd have to be maximum of $1 million, maybe it's slightly less. He could end up signing the same type of deal we saw Spezza do. Hard to say, but ultimately, though, if he does come in, it's going to cause a roster spot. Somebody's going to get bumped out. Somebody's going to get moved because they actually are going to have to do that anyways. With the signing of Aaron Dell, they can actually bury that contract in the minors. Right now, they can have a third-string goalie, especially with his $800K. They can get as much as $1 million relief, and so that's not going to impact their cap situation right now. But besides that, they have $400,000 showing in cap space according to CapFriendly.com, and they still need to get contracts done for Ilya Mikheyev and Travis Dermott. So they're certainly in a spot where they need to shed salary regardless. To add another contract in there for Thornton would mean a little bit more. I talked earlier in our video about the possibility of Travis Dermott being moved. That is a possibility, but they might look to bring in another defender if they do that. But you'd have to think that in the forward group, the most likely candidate to go would be Pierre Engvall, with Alex Kerfoot likely being the second most likely. But I think that at this point, they'd probably like to keep Kerfoot. I think longer term, they kind of see him as being a number 3 center. If they bring in Thornton, though, you could have Tavares, Matthews, and Thornton go 1, 2, 3 down the middle. Alex Kerfoot could probably jump over to the wing and with maybe still being able to take some faceoffs and maybe play center on occasion, depending on injuries and whatnot. Because the fourth line very well could be Jason Spezza, Wayne Simmons. I don't know exactly how they're going to do the lineup here. They certainly have a lot of options with everything they've added here this offseason. It's going to be a very different looking team. A fair bit of veteran leadership here coming into play. So obviously at this point, Thornton has a lot of decisions to make. So we know how persuasive the Leafs and their veterans can be when they get to this kind of point in recruiting players. Obviously he's from Ontario. It would be a homecoming for him. A chance to chase after a Stanley Cup, which is a team that probably would be a little bit closer than the Sharks, who he's played with for so long. I'm sure his heart is going to be torn here because I know he'd rather probably win with the Sharks, given how long he's played there and how much he's given to that organization. But at the end of the day, you only get so many cracks at it. And if the Leafs really want him, I would think their odds of getting it done are probably pretty good. So I'd like to know from you, especially if you're a Toronto fan, what are your thoughts on the possibility of the Leafs adding Joe Thornton? What else do you see going out here to kind of settle things from a cap perspective? They have to become cap compliant here before the next season. They still have Dermott and Mikheyev contracts to look after. You're going to see something substantial go out. Like I said, it very well could be Engvall, but it's likely going to have to be more than that. So there's going to be another piece likely have to go. It wouldn't be surprising to see a piece off the blue line go, because with all the additions there, they have more than enough NHL caliber defensemen as well. So let me know your thoughts on the latest Leafs news down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.